right now, even with the Biden administration in full swing, just on YouTube, I would say the far greater threat to the interests of socialism, to the interests of progressivism, to the interests of, I guess you could say, the broader American working class, is not these bread tube figures like Vosh or Philosophy Tube or ContraPoints, no matter how much we may disagree with them on certain things. It's the cavalcade of fracking billionaire-funded right-wing demagogues, the likes of Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, etc. We do need to both collectively realize that as much as I might have issues with you and you might have issues with me, the real threat that we face is not BreadTube or the techies, it's the far right, at least here in America.
But do you know who attempted to kill Lenin? The person who attempted to kill Lenin was a self-proclaimed anarchist. The ones who were the number one threat to the security and safety of the Soviet Union leading up to the war with the Nazis, they were leftists. It was always been other leftists who've been the enemy of leftists, who have been the ones who are responsible for the retreat of the left for the past 5 or 6 decades. Has it been some objective circumstance that makes it impossible for working people to follow communists and follow leftists? No, it's the result of the opportunism, the sterility, the dogmatism of leftists, the incompetence of leftists. Leftists have always been the enemy of leftists. Leftists have always been the enemy. The fact that rightists and pro-status quo establishment people are enemies is superfluous. We already know they're enemies. They're always going to be enemies. But the decisive enemies have always been leftists.
As far as the left posing the greatest threat to the Soviet Union, it's no doubt that the Soviets fought against other left-leaning groups. The demise of the free territory in Ukraine was largely a result of the Soviet Union's decisions. But I would probably say that the threats coming from the reactionary white army and the imperialist powers that supported it, and the invasion by the fascists, and not just invasion, but attempted genocide by the Nazis, was probably a far greater threat to the Soviets than any combination of Trotskyists or anarchists could ever dream of posing.
Yes, it's true that in the heat of battle, in the time of the Russian Civil War, the White Army, the Allies, were the biggest threat. And then during World War II, obviously, the Germans, the Nazis, were the biggest threat. We all know that. It's a given. But what were the conditions that enabled the possibility for the Soviet Union to confront and face those bigger threats? First and foremost, they had to get in order with the other leftists. The only reason the Red Army was able to repel and defeat the Allies in the White Army is because of the work that the Bolsheviks did through the entire duration of their existence to distinguish themselves and point out the opportunism and falsehood of the other so-called Marxists and so-called leftists that were operating within Russia. So you're putting the cart before the horse. The enemies are always leftists, not because at any given time the true enemy is going to be other leftists from a tactical or strategic view in war, but because in order to prepare and even stand a chance in those types of wars, you have to defeat, destroy, and crush these other leftists and make sure you're distinct from them. Just as much, the Soviet Red Army would have not stood a chance against the invading Nazi forces and aggressors had the Soviet Union not gone through its great purges and purged the leftist, the ultra-leftist elements who were so ultra-leftist they were collaborating with fascist and imperialistic powers in order to overthrow the Soviet Union and institute their true permanent revolution and whatever nonsense of that nature. Now, regarding this stuff,